Today, we commemorate the Bangladesh Hindu genocide of 1971, and we pay tribute to the 2 and 3 million victims who were killed, including more than 400 women and who were raped. And we need to remember this genocide incident 50 years later and never forget the brutality of this massacre in which all Bangladeshi people, including Hindus and other religious minorities, were oppressed and tortured. The Hindu community, as well as other minorities, lost their land and were slaughtered by the Pakistani army. Raping the Hindu women following a fatwa in Pakistan was really inhumane and barbaric, especially that they were killed after being raped today. We yearn for a global acknowledgement of this genocide, mainly because it remains unrecognized in comparison to other genocides in Europe and Africa. I would like also to thank Mr. Thierry Mariani for being here, MEP, and for giving his support to this conference. And I give the floor to MEP Adinolfi. Thank you for being here, who is member of Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, and also Committee on Culture and Education. Thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tina. MEP Fulvio Martuscello apologizes for not being able to be here due to technical issue with his flight to Brussels today. He's asked me to deliver his speech, which reads as follows. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, respected member of this assembly, I am honored today to host these commemoration events in the European Parliament to honor the victims of Bangladesh genocide in 1971 as member of the European Parliament and the EU delegation to South Asia. Many human rights groups and historians contended that over a 10-month period, the Pakistan military committed between 200,000 and 400,000 sexual assaults on Bengali women while receiving assistance from pro-Pakistan Islamist militants. In order to bring peace and provide justice for the marginalized population in Bangladesh and Pakistan, it's crucial to remember those who died and honor those who survived to 1971 genocide against the Bengali people. Understanding previous genocide is crucial for stopping violence both now and in the future. We can improve the ability of institutions to address inequality and bias by understanding the prejudice that have contributed to genocide and other types of systemic and physical violence. It's time for the EU to recognize that happening in Bangladesh as a crime against humanity. More than 50 years after the nation was plagued in blood and tyranny, the genocide should be recognized by the EU and the US. Thank you for breaking the silence about the 1971 Bangladesh genocide and honoring the memory of the victims. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MEP Adinolfi, for your speech, and thank you for supporting the cause and for coming here and supporting women's rights in Bangladesh. I would like to introduce you to this event. Actually, we have a small, video, 40 minutes video about the genocide of 1971. And after that, we give the floor to our respected speakers. I would like also to thank Mrs. Giuliana Franciosa, who is coming from the office of MEP Martuscello in Italy, and she is going to give a speech later. To give support to women as well, and also thank Mr. Thierry Val and Mrs. Christine Mir for being here as a human rights activist with their organization Cap Conscience and Liberty, which supports religious freedom and human rights. Thank you for being here as well. I thank also Mr. Nick Powell from EU Reporter for coming here and for covering the event. We would like to start the video right now if it is possible. Okay. The technician tells me that it takes 2 minutes, so maybe we can give the floor to our organizer and the leader of this initiative, Mr. Sital. Mr. Sital, the floor is yours. And thank you for being and making the journey to Brussels from the Netherlands, from The Hague. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam. Yeah, this is it. Just in 3 days we are meeting again at two events on human rights. Yes, we are a human rights organization based in The Hague and almost 21 years old. Yes, and also ECOSOC status. Our mission is to focus on minority rights, where we are talking about groups violations, and we started, in fact, our organization started with Bangladesh that time, and as a person, when we started on Bangladesh, I was really shocked because I had heard about the Second World War, and then we said never, never again. And then we started it, and my birthplace is Suriname, South America. We know some human rights violation, but not so extreme, not so hard. And it was very intense also to experience this. About gang rape was one of the main issue about how to give the signal that we are controlling you. That's why it took us a little bit more time to focus on this, and it comes back that we need to do something on this. All through the new government now is doing a lot to promote that the genocide happened and people have to be prosecuted. And we want and we urge also international organizations that we should find and we should get the army that was then responsible to bring them to trial. It just organized genocide against a group, not only one group, not only the Hindus, all Bangladeshi who were fighting for liberty, wanted to have their own country, was targeted. And that is what we want to show in the movie also, that it was a collective struggle, fight to get independence, and the Pakistani army did not look about what you are or who you are. Their target was to kill maximum and to get control of the country again. So I'm very proud to be here. I'm very happy and give me a lot of satisfaction that we could manage it in a short time. Thank you for that, Mina. And all of you can imagine that human right is for everyone. Everybody can fight human right. Everybody is qualified to fight human right. Human right don't have a color, human right don't have a race, human right don't have a nationality. We all have to fight for human right equality, and for that we should put all our efforts to help everyone in the world. And there is more happened in the world than only in Bangladesh. So we have to keep watching and see that the words that say never, never again, it still happened recently with the Yazidis, and it's happening again and again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sital, for this inspiring speech, and thank you for your wise word about human rights. It's something universal, and we have to defend it. And we always say never again, and we have to speak about all genocides, and we have to and commemorate today the genocide of Bangladeshi people and show our solidarity to the victims. And that's why we have one of testimonials from Bangladesh, Mr. Mani. Thank you, Paul. Yes, thank you, Mr. Paul, for coming here. So you are a human rights activist, and you are you come from Bangladesh actually right away. So we will be honored to hear from you your testimony before having before seeing together the movie. Thank you.
Yes. First, I think that you made a mistake that I'm okay. I have been here since long,
Okay.
But I have some experience about the Bangladesh division war at the center of the genocide that happened in Bangladesh in 71. it's my pleasure, to be here as one of the survivors of Bangladesh Liberation War. So, respectable speakers and ladies and gentlemen, and respectable ambassador from Bangladesh. As a survivor of 1971 genocide and my association with the Liberation War of Bangladesh, it's my great opportunity to offer the stories of brutality of Pakistani army to you all. People at my age, those who were within the adolescence and crossed the adolescence period at the time of Liberation War, would be extinguished within 10 to 15 years. And after that, you won't be able to listen the truth of the bravery of freedom fighting and the brutality of Pakistani army in 1971. So I'm the living testimony, one of the living testimonies. It was really unfortunate that the Liberation War of Bangladesh was trapped within the Cold War sandwich of two superpowers at that time. We are so unfortunate and we had to suffer for that long time. At that time, if you could remember, US, China, and all the Muslim countries have supported Pakistan by arms, logistics, and diplomatically. Success of the liberation came through the direct involvement of India with their military support and diplomatic support of USSR in United Nations. At present, the people of Bangladesh, those who are conceiving the aspiration of liberation war, those who are conceiving the aspiration of liberation war, are grateful to India, are grateful to Russia, and some other European countries, those who supported at that time. I had a chance to visit most of the prominent genocidal memorial centers in the world, as in Cambodia, as in Vietnam, as in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and recently in Kosovo. In my experience, in compared to Bangladesh genocide, the numerical number of deaths of these massacres were much, much more lower. In 9 months of liberation war, 3 million people have died, mostly unarmed people. And, about 300,000 women were lost their chastity. My experience, roaming around the world, I did never really feel this sort of, stories or happenings. And one interesting issue, as Mr. Sheetal discussed, one interesting issue on this subject is that a fact which never been discussed and acknowledged by the Bangladeshi war historian and the government of Bangladesh is that in that massacre, almost 70% of the deceased people were Hindus. In my opinion, the massacre of Bangladesh could also be termed as Hindu genocide in the year 1971 by Pakistani brutality. Recently, I have visited the Jewish Holocaust Memorial Center in Skopje, North Macedonia. I had seen some of the stories of brutalities and hatred against the Jews by the Gestapos. Are very similar stories that happened in Bangladesh liberation time. But Pakistani army and their associates did at that time. Quite interestingly, relating to my visit in Jewish Holocaust Memorial Center, I will let you know one of my stories at that time of liberation war in 1971. I'm just relating these two stories that what I did face and what I did saw in the Holocaust Memorial. As I came across at that time when I was visiting that memorial, I came across it from the documentary in the Jewish Center when Gestapo used to deliver the soup to the prisoned Jewish people before sending them to the gas chamber. They spit it. They spit it on the soup and then they delivered it to the prisoners before dying. And same was happened to me. I was called by the 14th Belarus Regiment in Chittagong area. And in early days of liberation war, by the help of their collaborators, Bihari collaborators. After torture for a couple of hours on me, I prayed for a glass of water. Could you imagine what did they serve me? They served me a glass of urine. It's not a story. I'm still surviving. Though I didn't drink that, urine, and as consequence, I was subjected to receive more tortures, more and more tortures, but still I am surviving. There are so many stories, I'm telling you, there are so many stories I could describe. But due to the time constraint, I am not going to. There are so many speakers here. When visiting this genocide memorial centers around the world, a few questions came to my mind. Why? Why the massacre of Bangladesh, which is the second largest genocide in the last century after Jewish Holocaust, is not a serious discussion in the international political arena? Why? We are living in a free world now. There is no any Cold War anymore. Why? And another question is that why the international media are so much ashamed to afford the Bangladesh massacre and rebuke Pakistanis for their brutalities? Why? Did you ever question for that? Why not? To expose the Pakistani brutality in the world? Look, Pol Pot in Cambodia and Slobodan Milosevic in Serbia were handed over to the International Court of Justice and tried under the mechanism of international law and also enforced the justice against them. But why? Why Pakistani perpetrators couldn't be tried under the Code of International Law? Till today, they are not tried. I think it's not an offense only for us, only to us. It's an offense to the world humanity. It's an offense to you also. Why you are not really putting this question to the world community. 3 million people died. Could you imagine that? Within 9 months, 3 million people died. 300,000 women lost their destiny. As a survivor of 71 genocide in Bangladesh, I would ask to the European Parliament to recognize this huge massacre as genocide of Bangladesh. It's our earth. I'm urging you on behalf of people of Bangladesh. And also, compel the Pakistani regime to acknowledge the brutality and forcing them to apologize for the orchestrating such much killing in the present history of mankind. Thank you all for listening patiently.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul, who is a human rights activist, Executive Director of Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities EU Chapter, Interfaith and Intercultural Dialogue Promotion Evangelist. Thank you for your speech and for your testimonial, and thank you for being here. And I'm sorry if I said you come from Bangladesh, but you are our so you are also European as well. Thank you so much.
But in mind, I'm Bangladeshi.
Of course. We move to our next speaker, who is Mrs. Juliana Franciosa. She is a communication expert and advisor. She works as well with the staff of MEP Martuchello. We'd like to thank all the staff, including Valerio and Frederica, everyone working here for their help and for their assistance for the success of this event. Thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Grazie Manel, benvenuti a tutti. Il Parlamento è il luogo della democrazia e noi siamo qui proprio per manifestare la nostra vicinanza alle popolazioni del Bangladesh. Ci opponiamo fortemente alle atrocità commesse e non possiamo esimerci naturalmente dal rompere il silenzio di fronte a quello che è accaduto in Bangladesh e quindi continuare ad onorare la memoria delle vittime. È fondamentale che l'Unione Europea riconosca tutto quello che è accaduto in Bangladesh come un crimine contro l'umanità, proprio al pari di simili atrocità commesse nella storia. Quindi bisogna comprendere i motivi alla radice dei genocidi per prevenire episodi sistematici di violenza sistematica. Il mio voleva essere solamente un saluto e un appoggio a tutto quello che state facendo e continuerete a fare per queste popolazioni. Grazie.
I don't know if His Excellency Ambassador Mahmoud Saleh has a few words to say. Yes.
Can you speak from here?
Yeah. So, Your Excellency, thank you for being here and thank you for supporting this event. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll try to be brief because of the time constraint. Thank you for organizing this event, all protocols observed. 1971 genocide, as many of the speakers have rightly said, is not yet recognized by the overwhelming majority of the international community. It was definitely a crimes against humanity. 3 million people, Bengalis, were killed. More than 2 million Bengali women were raped. 10 million Bengalis took refuge in India. We had a total population of 75 million in 1971, and 30 million Bengalis were internally displaced. So that was the magnitude of what we suffered in 1971, which is not very widely known in the international community. It's our responsibility, of course, whether we are at the embassy or anywhere in the world, to tell that story to the world, what happened in Bangladesh in 1971. The genocide under the code name Operation Searchlight was inflicted on the innocent civilian Bengali population, men, women and children, by the Pakistan military and the local collaborators from 25th of March 1971 for 9 months. Some recognitions have recently, in last 2 years, have come. The very first one was by the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention. That was in December 2021. The second one was by Genocide Watch. That was in February 22. The third one by International Coalition of Sites of Conscience in March 2023. And a very significant one by the International Association of Genocide Scholars to a resolution that recognized the genocide of Bangladesh in April this year. I would like to put it on record that a member of the victim family of 1971 Bangladesh genocide, Dr. Tawhid Reza Noor, played a very important role through his research and reaching out to these organizations to have the recognition of Bangladesh genocide 1971. I would certainly urge upon all in the EU institutions, because the EU has been continually a very strong proponent of human rights all over the world. And we are great partners in protecting and promoting human rights and many other issues of human dignity. So it would be a great step forward if the European Parliament and other EU institutions recognize this Bangladesh genocide 1971. Others, once that happens, I'm sure others will follow the EU example. And as you are all you all belong to different institutions, I would also request you all to kindly campaign for the recognition of this Bangladesh genocide 1970. Let's call it a genocide. I mean, it's certainly the entire population on the ethnic Bengalis. There were Muslims, there were Hindus. Yes, the Hindus were disproportionately attacked and brutalized, no question about it. But it was against the civilian ethnic Bengali population who were innocent and who were the victims of that brutal genocide perpetrated by Pakistan military and their local collaborators. And kindly raise your voice so that the Pakistan authorities acknowledge what their military did in 1971 and say sorry and apologize to the people of Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your speech, and thank you for being here. We would like also to thank all the participants and the MEP Mariani, who was here, member of the AFET committee, a member with the delegation of relations to India, as well as member of TROI, which is a human rights committee, who was here and following as well the debate. I don't know if the movie is ready right now. Do we have the movie?
I'm solving the issues.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we can continue with the speakers and then we get back to the movie. Our next speaker is Mr. Willy Fautrey, who is founder and director of Human Rights Without Frontiers, press correspondent and member of the editorial board of the European Times in Brussels, member of the press club in Brussels, and contributor to various media in Brussels, like EU Reporter, EU Political Report, Euractiv, Europe Observer, and member of the Human Rights and Democracy Network in Brussels, associate editor in the editorial board of Beta Winter, a magazine on religious liberty and human rights, lecturer in universities in academic conferences of freedom of religion or belief on human rights, consultant to the intergroup on freedom of religion or belief at the European Parliament on various projects, and member of Human Rights and Democracy Network in Brussels. He has a lot of, let's say, a lot of titles, and we are honored to have him here today. But most of all, he is a human rights defender and one of the best human rights defenders in town. Thank you, Willy, for being here.
Thank you, Manel, for your kind but exaggerated, I think, presentation. Oh, sorry. I think I have a high voice. You know, I was teaching before. I always had the class in front of me, so I'm used to that. I titled my presentation, "The Bangladesh Genocide, an issue for the EU member states." Just as it was said before, it's on the 26th of March 1971 the Pakistan Army began its fateful Operation Searchlight with the intention to eliminate all Bengali opposition in Bangladesh. The result, you heard, the statistics can vary from one source to another, but 10 million people were displaced, more than 1.5 million murdered, hundreds of thousands of women were raped, and the international community knew. But these crimes were absolutely ignored, and the genocide in Bangladesh was absolutely ignored, unfortunately. But how did it start? So some historical background. August 1947, the 14th exactly, the Dominion of Pakistan was created, and East Bengal, with Dhaka as its capital, was then the most populous province of the 1947 Pakistani Federation, which was then led by General, well-known name, General Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He promised freedom of religion and secular democracy in the new state. 1 year later, March 48, a few months before he died, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, considered as the father of modern Pakistan, visited in East Bengal and proclaimed Urdu the sole national language of the country. However, the inhabitants wanted the Bengali language to be acknowledged as one of Pakistan's national languages, and there were protests. 1952, the Bengali language movement was the first serious sign of friction between the country's geographically separated wings. 4 years later, Pakistan adopted a new constitution. 3 Bengalis were its prime minister until 1957, but none of the 3 completed their terms and resigned from office. And in 1958, the Pakistan Army imposed military rule. Ethnic linguistic discrimination was common in Pakistan's civil and military services, in which Bengalis were underrepresented. Cultural discrimination also prevailed, making East Pakistan forge a distinct political identity. Authorities banned Bengali literature and music in state media. After the December 70 elections, calls for the independence of East Bengal became louder. The Bengali nationalist Awami League won 167 of the 169 East Pakistani seats, almost unanimity in the National Assembly. The League claimed the right to form a government and develop a new constitution, but was strongly opposed by the Pakistani military. And then the fateful day of, or evening, 26 March 1971, when the Pakistani army began its fateful operation with the intention to... 25 March, we discussed about the date exactly to eliminate the Bengali opposition in Bangladesh. I have a long paper, but I will just go to the end of it and the European Union. So the issue whether Bangladesh independence was accompanied by genocide is hardly controversial. Three renowned institutes come to that conclusion: Genocide Watch, the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention, and the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience. Those three institutes call on the international community, and by extension to the UN, to recognize the genocide of Bangladesh in 1971. The Dutch House of Representatives and other parliaments in the world are requested to join this plea and formally declare that there was a genocide in Bangladesh. On the 21st of May of this year, the Netherlands envisaged to recognize the role of Pakistan in the genocide. Notably, a Dutch politician and former member of the parliament, Arie van Bommel, stated that the role of the Pakistani army in committing in 1971 the Bangladesh genocide, that it was obvious and that it would get global recognition. It would be to the credit of the Netherlands to strengthen its early involvement in the fate of the Bangladeshis with recognition of the genocide. The Netherlands would not be the first Western country to pay political attention to the genocide. In October 2022, US Congressman Steve Chabot, a Republican, and Ro Khanna, a Democrat, submitted proposals for recognition of the genocide. Earlier this year, it was proposed in the British Parliament to come to recognition. It would be to the credit of the European and its member states to recognize this forgotten genocide and to transmit its souvenir to the over 400 million European citizens. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Willy Fautré, for this inspiring speech, and also for your kind of, it's a kind of, let's say, a summary of what is happening right now within the European Union, the UK, and the US in terms of recognizing the genocide of Bangladesh 1971. I guess that the movie is ready. I think it's ready.
During 1971, during the Liberation War, I was about 14 to 15 years of age and studying at the class 10 of Holy Cross School. My links to the war was basically the fact that I am a victim of the war, in the sense that my father, Dr. Jyotirmoy Thakurta, was killed on the very first night of the operation of the Pakistan Army, which they called Operation Searchlight. So on the 25th night, close to about midnight, my mother, I, and my father, who were both living on the campus just across from Jagannath Hall, where my father was the provost. It was a dormitory where my father was a provost. And very close to that, we were living across the street. And my father was correcting exam scripts. And suddenly we heard lots of firing and gunfire all around. Usually there was some gunfire because, you know, after the 7th of March, the declaration of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who said it would be a civil disobedient movement. So the students were preparing for war, so sometimes they would do marching at night. We saw lots of Pakistani army in a convoy of jeeps which just stopped outside our gate. So they broke the chain of the gate and they rushed in. And they went to each of the flats. We were on the ground floor and banged the doors. We tried to open the door, but the door would not open. So they came around behind the backyard, which was a garden. And then they banged on our kitchen door. And we had a household help who opened the door, and she was thrown aside. And the 3 army, one looked like an officer, and 2 soldiers walked in with guns in their hand and in a Pakistan Army uniform. My mother went forward and asked them, "What do you want?" And they said, "We've come to take the professor. Is he here?" And she said, "Where will you take him?" They did not answer. They brushed her aside and went on to my father, who was standing there. And they asked my father, "Are you the professor?" My father said, "Yes." And then they said, "We will take you." My father asked why, but they did not answer why. They just took him by the hand and went away. We had the idea they were arresting my father because they didn't ask him any other thing. So we thought that as soon as they leave, we will call up people to know where he's being held, and then we will go through the process. That was our idea. But when the soldiers left, on seeing that, my mother told the family that don't resist. If you resist, they will shoot you. So they also took my husband. And but at that moment, I rushed to call up people. But as soon as I took the phone lines were cut, I realized. So I came back to tell my mother that the phone lines are being cut. And soon we heard 4 dreadful, loud noises of bullets. And as we went to the front door to see what happened, we saw Muniruzzaman and his 3 son and 2 nephews all lying on the pool of blood. So they were shot immediately. They were really, some were spot dead, some were groaning. So as we were hurrying, trying to give them water, one of the women in that family called my mother and said that, "Look, your husband is also being shot. He's lying outside, he's calling your name." We were thunderstruck. I mean, we did not expect this. So the 2 shots had hit him, one in the nape of his neck and the other in the waist, which actually paralyzed him downwards. So he could not raise himself up again. As we gave him water, then several people came to help us carry him to the house. We couldn't take him to the medical hospital then and there because there was a curfew all around and the soldiers were still patrolling the streets. And we know that we would be shot again if they saw him. So we took them inside our house, but we had to take him over the dead bodies of the professor and the 3 sons that they were killed on our landing. And once in the house, he was put on a mattress on the floor, and then for that whole night we couldn't take him to the hospital. The next day and the next night also we couldn't take him. So the whole of the 25th night went like this, that my mother gave whatever first aid she could, but he was conscious but slowly getting weak. The doctors saw him and they told my mother at that time that he was critically injured, so they couldn't do anything about it, but just make him comfortable. So in that way we stayed on in the hospital. My mother stayed with him, as I too, and on the 30th of March in the morning, he breathed his last.
We can start it from 1970, because after the election, Awami League won the majority, except the Pakistanis and their intelligence service. The Bengalis or Bengalis knew that they are going to win, and they won, both in the provincial assembly and in the central assembly. We didn't think, let me tell you frankly, that this sort of thing can happen. We thought, because the election was on universal suffrage for the first time in Pakistan, power will be peacefully transferred. But from the 1st January 71, there was an apprehension, because the things the central government is saying or the army junta was not conducive to the Bengali people. And it became clear on the January they are not going to transfer the power. And as you know, from January to March, there was negotiation, counter negotiation and other things. And from March, after the 7th March, or we will say from the 1st March, the army was shooting people. There was small bits of rice here and there. And after the 7th March speech by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, it was transparent clearly that we are not going to get the power. And Bangabandhu and Awami League leaders tried to, what should I say, the posture was there being discussion for democratic reason. But you see, East Pakistan, that East Pakistan, is a far away from the central government. And from the ancient times, it was an hinterland. And at that time also, it was an hinterland. We didn't have that much world view, and we didn't know what genocide is. We have read it. We have seen films of Holocaust, but we didn't think that could happen in a modern state in 70s. And we didn't face any war. You see, for 1,000 years there was war. You see, say war of Plassey. It was in the field. Two armies, as you know, you have seen in the film also, the medieval people, they are fighting in a field. So the common people, it didn't affect them. So we didn't know anything about war. Europeans knew because they fought war for 1,000 years, but we didn't know. I mean, they are common people. So there are two things: there's a war and it's the genocide. We are not ready for it. We thought, yes, there will be strike, there will be shooting, there will be counter, attack, something like that, but not on that scale. But it all started at 5th March. Then we understood what war is, and we understood what genocide is. And the rest is history. I was in Dhaka, I was a student of the university, living in Mirpur. At that time, it was not densely populated area, and it was a suburb of Dhaka. We didn't know, because Dhaka at that time was a small city still, at that time it was a small city. We didn't know what was going to happen, but on the 25th March, till evening, we were in the city, but there was an apprehension that something is going to happen. But because I went to the suburb, and there was no modern technologies at this time, so we had a transistor radio and a land telephone. On the 25th March, we made our friends and we were roaming around the city. By afternoon, we are going to our home. But there was an apprehension that something could happen, but we didn't know what is going to happen. And I used to live with my uncle in Mirpur, that is Pallavi, a place called Pallavi. At that time it was just a few buildings or something like that. You may call it a suburb of Dhaka. At that time we had only a land telephone and a transistor to listen to. Around 12 o'clock, one of my uncle's students, who used to stay near the secretariat in the center of Dhaka. So he was very excited, and so he was telling that the tanks are roaming the city, there are fires, you see, they are shooting. But he didn't know anything. And from India, Calcutta particularly, we got the news that according to that, the civil war has started in East Pakistan, and they're playing our national anthem, My Golden Bengal. But still we didn't know, because we are afraid of the non-Bengalis, we call them Biharis. They also used to live in Mirpur. And from 27th onwards, we saw they are surrounding our area, Bengali-speaking areas, and they started shooting people and looting houses. And on the 28th, maybe, some non-Bengalis, they took us, the Bengali families, 4 or 5 Bengali families, to his house, locked them inside a room. And when the looters came, he came forward with his gun and said, there is no Bengali, you should leave. They didn't believe, he said no. And they left, but we thought we are not, if we stay here, we'll be butchered, because I saw they are chasing a man, Bengali doctor, and he fell on the ground. They had sharpened rods, they were sticking it in his eyes, killed him. Then they left the body in a manhole. So these things were happening.
And on the night of the 25th December, which is the Black Day or the Genocide Day, I mean, whatever you can describe, it happened at the midnight. And we can hear, because it is very far away, the center of the city is far away from where I was living. But I could, somebody woke me up, because we were doing literally a 24 hours vigil, so that there is no trouble in that area, on that residential area. So we were in a shift. So my shift was, I went to sleep, taking a break. So during that break, somebody woke me up and said, do you hear the sound? So already cannons and the machine guns, we can hear. It was a dead night, it was silent, and we can see the flare from the rooftop. And we understood what has happened. I was very young, but I could understand. Then we discussed, it is too late, we cannot stay in the house. We have to move. The next morning I moved my mother to a safer place. So that's how we were saved. The following day, after we shifted my mother, it was already the Urdu speaking, those who were supported Pakistan. And incidentally, my younger brother is immigrant in Australia, Nasim Samad. He hoisted the independence flag. So it became a sort of like everybody could see that flag, and he put it up in a bamboo pole, as tall as you can see from a very far away place. So obviously that house was a target, and the first attack was my mother's house. It was attacked, it was vandalized, it was, of course, I'm not sure about looting, there was and they put it on fire. Because of anger. This is more like anger. So why did you hoist that independence flag? This is seditious. But we could see that my house is on flame. We were in a safe place because the gentleman who had given us shelter, he speaks the language very fluently. And he looks like a Pakistani, incidentally. So he could help us to be safe. On 27th we couldn't move, the curfew was still there. On the 28th there was a break for a few hours. So that was when we left the place and we went to my mother's father's house.
reasons why there is a Bangladesh today is the fact that troops from West Pakistan, Punjabis, savagely terrorized the Bengali population of East Pakistan. Perhaps 1 million people died.
Our area was very remote area in Manipur. The people, both Bengali Muslim and Bengali Hindu, we are living peacefully. And two groups of freedom fighters were sheltered our village. And as a remote area, Pakistani army could not move those areas because they had a danger to be attacked by the freedom fighter. And this was a peaceful area actually, and we did not attacked by the army up to 14 December 1971. But my many relatives who lived around the Maniganj town, they were very dangerous. One of my relatives and my sister-in-law were taken by the army and their collaborators in Rajaka. They taken them and his relative. Their clothes shop, and they are sleeping in clothes shop, and they are taken and they were shoot near Aliganga river. But my sister-in-law, he was very lucky. Jumped into the river and she escaped. But my another relative, she was killed. And in Maniganj and our neighboring village in October 19 those where mostly or almost 100% people are a minority, and three villages are minority people live there, and these villages were attacked by the Pakistani army and their collaborators, Rajakar, Al-Badur, etc. And they burned all the villages, and when they entered into the village, most of the people fled from the village, and they took a shelter on the rice field, paddy field, and where around 2 feet or 3 feet water, standing water, and they, including children and women, men, all take here. One person were in, but almost all villages, all households were, and all houses were destroyed and burned with gunpowder. And then these villages, three villages, are around 3 kilometers distance from our village, and we are standing seeing this scene, and we are also very feared because we attacked. And some days after, the armies were attacked by the freedom fighter. So I was there almost the whole night under a tree. They were asked to leave, and I was asked to. Then I was told that look, we are looking for somebody who has to go back to the.
Okay. Thank you so much. So this was, I mean, at least half of the movie, which is entitled "The Forgotten Genocide." And maybe you can watch it. I mean, on internet, and it was also performed in the Hague Film Festival, Human Rights Film Festival, organized by Global Human Rights Defense. And you might find this movie having a lot of words. And I would like to thank Mr. Sital for this initiative, because I believe that remembering and commemorating the victims, as well as the duty of remembrance, is an act which has to be in relation to writing, reading, raising awareness, as well as creating art through documentaries. And of course, here today we have a lot of students coming from universities here in Brussels, and very important to thank these people for their time and for their solidarity to the genocide of Bangladesh, and thank Ms. Aisha. She's also working in the humanitarian field, social assistance, and also working with these students who are the future leaders of Europe and of their countries of origin, and they would be. It's very important to have this remembrance duty at universities and at school, but also in European institutions, and that's why we thank the European Parliament for this initiative, and also we thank the MEPs hosting this event. Thank you, Mr.
Sorry. We will soon put, we will share on our website, you will find a link to watch the movie full. It's a 45-minute movie, and I think because of the delay, it will be, the question and answers should be more, it's for me also interesting to see where we can collaborate. Yes, as we already said that, also the ambassador also mentioned that, see, we never have to give up. We have to continue until we bring justice to the one who got killed, or the one who is still living but living in hell, because when you lose your family, you lose your friends, you lose everything, then life doesn't matter anymore for a human being. And it's our duty to do and to work on anyone who face this kind of genocide, human rights violation, to work for them. It's our ultimate duty as a human being to work for anyone that needs help. And definitely we will fight until we get official. In fact, when you recognize this genocide, this will be for a lot of people who find peace, and for a lot of people who are responsible for that will be also, again, that you cannot escape, you cannot hide. The human rights organization and country that believe in human rights will find you. And that is, I think, what we should do. And that is our duty to fight for these people, to see that they get their recognition, and to see that everybody knows in the world what's happened. We have done a survey in the Netherlands, in Germany, and lately we were in Geneva in March. We have asked a lot of people, what do you know about Bangladesh? And from the 100 people, only maybe 10% people know something happened in Bangladesh, but they don't know what happened. And that is what we need to see, that this also comes in history books. Not only the Second World War, but all wars, like the Yazidi, what's happened, like what's happened to other wars in any place in the world. We need to put it in our history book also, because a war in Europe looks like a war for everyone. But then there is a war in Africa, then there's the African war. We should include everything in our history books, and we should include them, we should fight for them. And I'm very proud that people are here to support us in this. And as a human rights organization, we have 80 young people, only young people working for our organization. I'm the oldest one, the middle age. The oldest director is 28 years old. So we have a huge potential to create a new world. I personally always say that my generation did not done a great job, because in my generation we had a lot of war, I think we had more war in my generation than before. Before we had this big war, but after the Second World War we had a lot of small wars, but more people are killed. We have more people still having hungry, and we have the best technology. We have all material to solve this problem. So I only believe in the future. I think the youth is the future. I think the youth can change the world, and we must empower the youth, because you only can give the earth back the respect what the earth needs, and also the humanity have to come back, instead of money and everything that we have to confirm. Everyone should be yeah, I think given back in a certain way that they feel respected and have a decent life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sital. We have our last speaker before moving into Q&A session. Mr. Andy Vermouth, who is a noted journalist, EU Climate Pact ambassador, advocate for human rights, the president of the World Council for Public Diplomacy and Community Dialogue. He fosters global conversations and understanding. He's also associated with the rights-focused Post Versa and regularly speaks at the Human Rights Council. Furthermore, Andy is committed to combating hate speech at both national and international levels. His work embodies a dedication to climate action, human rights, and constructive dialogue. Andy Vermouth, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manila. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here today, sit here today, this 3rd of July 2023, in the hallowed halls of the European Parliament, at the very heart of what unifies us as Europeans and global citizens. I extend my gratitude to Madame President Roberta Metsola, a beacon of leadership, and thank Madame Salmi for granting me the honor to speak on this significant day. Just like a storm gathers over half a century ago, humanity faced a cataclysm. In 1971, darkness fell upon the globe as 3 million Bengalis were systematically eradicated in a horrific, orchestrated genocides. Think about it. 3 million lives, just like ours, extinguished, their voices silenced forever. The scale of these genocides matched the devastation caused by 20 combined Hiroshima and Nagasaki disasters. A historical echo from 52 years ago. This dark chapter remains a painful thorn in the conscience of our world. We cannot turn a blind eye, Madame President Metsola, to the fact that during these genocides, over 200,000 women were brutally violated. It stings, a painful reminder for a shared European and global history that during these dark times, we, as united Europe, were silent spectators. All United Nations, while verbally condemning these atrocities, failed to act in the hours of need. As we gather here, the remnants of this unspeakable atrocity still cause anguish. Even after more than 5 decades, the scars remain. The hurt for the Bangladeshi people runs deep. It's an open wound, festering and unhealed, serves as a chilling reminder of our moral obligation to confront this atrocity. It's only through such confrontation that we can start healing the wounds inflicted so long ago. In an ideal world, the European Union should stand tall, leading the way in recognizing the Pakistani genocide in Bangladesh. As Belgium accepted its dark past in Congo, with sincere remorse, so should Pakistan also publicly confront this horrendous chapter in its history. Madam President, it's you who hold the key to restore hope in the hearts of all the Bangladeshi people. Recognition by the European Union of these atrocities suffered by Bangladesh could be the first step towards healing, towards recovery. This recognition should help close a horrific chapter in world history, marking the beginning of a new era of understanding and reconciliation. Our moral leadership should not just be rhetoric, it should manifest in our action. We must take responsibility for our collective inaction in 1971. Standing before you today, I humbly ask for forgiveness on behalf of all Europeans. We fell short in our duty to protect the innocent in the face of this horrendous massacre. Our failure weighs heavily on our collective conscience. For over 52 long years, the people of Bangladesh have waited, their spirits unbound for the world to recognize these grave injustices committed against them. They have shown remarkable patience, remarkable resilience, and it's now time for us all to act. Pakistan too, they must bear responsibility for the atrocities committed during 1971. The European Union, under your firm leadership, can facilitate this acceptance. This recognition could mark a journey towards healing and reconciliation. Reminded of Dr. Martin Luther King's immortal words, the time is always right to do what is right. And it's inspired by former President Barack Obama's belief that change is never easy, but always possible. Let's us muster the courage to take this long overdue step towards recognizing the 1971 genocide in Bangladesh. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for us to bring this tragic episode to light and to help our Bangladeshi brothers and sisters heal their wounds. Let us stand united, resolute in our pledge that we shall never again allow such an atrocity to happen. We beseech you to acknowledge the 1971 genocide in Bangladesh, to stand on the right side of history, to echo a term in Bengali, Arnoi Gona Gota, genocides never again. This recognition won't erase the pain or undo the horrors the Bangladeshi people experience, but it's a step. It's a small step towards healing. To those who lived through it, to the generations that followed, carrying the burden of history, your recognition will send a clear message. We see you, we acknowledge your pain, and we stand with you. The scars of history are indelible, yet we mustn't let define our future. Instead, let them serve as reminders of where we have been, lessons for where we are going, lessons for humanity, lessons for dignity and the resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of the utmost adversity. So today, let's choose us to heal, let's choose us to remember, let's choose us to stand on the side of justice. Let's turn this new leaf in the annals of history by acknowledging these atrocities of the past and ensuring they are never repeated. As Barack Obama once said, we did not come to fear the future. We came here to shape it. So let's shape a future where the horrors of the past are recognized, acknowledged, and serve as stepping stones towards a world steeped in empathy, understanding, and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, let's seize this moment to affirm our commitments to humanity, to affirm our refusal to let such atrocities fade into the oblivion of forgotten history. Let's take this opportunity to stand in solidarity with our Bangladeshi brothers and sisters and together step towards a brighter, more empathetic tomorrow. In doing so, we don't just honor the memory of the millions of lives lost, but we also honor our shared humanity, our shared commitment to worlds where such atrocities are a thing of the past. Thank you, and may we all strive to create a more compassionate world. Thank you.
For this inspiring speech and for this invitation to recognize the Bangladesh genocide by the European institutions and mainly the European Parliament. I would like also to thank the committee, the representative of the Bangladeshi community, Mr. Murshid, for being here together with all the other representatives of the community in the Bangladeshi community in Belgium, and thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this event as well. So we move to the Q&A. So the floor is yours, and we know that we have a lot of students, young people here. So maybe they have some questions. They have never heard about the Bangladeshi genocide before. So maybe it's the time to ask questions about this forgotten genocide. Yes, Mr. Teliva.
I'm not a student. I was before, not anymore.
we are all students for forever, you know.
Yes.
Lifetime learning. Yeah.
And yes, and thank you for this event because the chance, when we met in March, you didn't ask me the question of Bangladesh because unfortunately I will be part of the one that don't know anything regarding the genocide. I was young in 1971, so maybe I will remember that something occurred in this era at that time, but not such a genocide. So my question will be a practical one. His Excellency, dear speakers, what is the major obstacles of the recognition of the genocide at the EU level, or EU countries, or even at the United Nations? And we are working on different topics at the United Nations with all of the panelists here. So my question is, what are the major obstacles of the recognition, and what can be done to pass over those obstacles? So my question is for you, Your Excellency, and for the panelists for sure. Thank you.
Maybe Your Excellency?
Yeah, I can go first. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Very pertinent. The history of 1971, I'm sure, is not really known to people, to students who are present here. So thank you very much for being here. If I take just 1 minute to tell you the history in a nutshell, when the genocide actually started, it was 25th of March 1971 when the Pakistan military launched the genocide under, I repeat, under a code name Operation Searchlight. The history was already before 1971, the history has already been briefly told by Willie. Thanks for that. When the genocide was launched, that was 25th of March 1971 at about 10 p.m. Only after that, our founding father, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, declared independence. Before that, it was a peaceful, I repeat, peaceful non-cooperation movement. He waited and waited for a civilian solution, a peaceful solution, a peaceful resolution, though there was nothing actually to resolve, because the power was not handed over to him, and he was the leader of the majority party of Awami League. So when the genocide was launched, only after that, in the early hours of 26 March, he declared independence and called for the resistance to a war of liberation, which continued for 9 months and ended with the surrender of Pakistan military to the joint forces of Bangladesh Freedom Fighters, Bangladesh Forces, and India on December 16, 1971. You can search the Bangladesh Liberation War and Bangladesh Genocide 1971. You'll find plenty of information on the digital platform. Now, coming to your question, sir, what are the obstacles? When we became independent, of course, we were a war-ravaged country. There was no infrastructure, no economy. Our primary objective was to keep these 75 billion people alive, to feed them. Unfortunately and tragically, only after 3 years and 7 months, the founding father was brutally assassinated by terrorists, along with almost all the members of his family. So within the country, there was a 180-degree turn of the values and morals on which we fought our war of liberation and became independent. Overall, the geopolitics in the world had a role, honestly. Politics and geopolitics, if we can keep those below the human rights, then we will certainly be able to have the global recognition. Geopolitics and politics should not be on top of these crimes against humanity. I hope, and I thank all the panelists and all who were present here, particularly the members of the European Parliament. Some of them were here, and their officials were also here. And particularly sitting in this Parliament, I would only hope that some members of the European Parliament, cutting across all political groups, will propose a resolution to recognize the Bangladesh Genocide 1971 as soon as possible. And please lend your hands to that. The campaign by all of you can make it happen. We have seen some developments in last 1 year and 7 months. I have mentioned, Willie has also mentioned. So we don't lose heart. We have waited, as Andy said, for 52 years. We can wait a little more, but we will get this international recognition of our genocide. Definitely. Thank you.
I give the floor to Andy Vermont.
Yes. So yes, this is true. It's a political decision to have this recognition. So it's a simple resolution who has to be approved. So it's a political decision. But something that I wanted to add, because a lot of people always talk about Bangladesh genocides, and I want to change this a little bit. I wanted to say Pakistan genocide in Bangladesh, because it's the Pakistanis who did it, so it's really important, because some people think, if they heard the term Bangladesh genocide, they think it's Bangladesh who is involved. No, it's not Bangladesh who is involved, it's Pakistan genocide in Bangladesh. This would be a better term to get remembrance of the people, and I hope His Excellency can agree with this, that it would be better to say Pakistan genocide in Bangladesh.
I have a comment on that. I mean, if you mention the Armenian genocide, it doesn't mean that Armenia, they are victims of the genocide. But yeah, maybe Bangladeshi genocide, or
I think, if I may, I would say it's either Bangladesh genocide in 1971 or genocide in Bangladesh in 1971. And then, of course, the narratives will say that the perpetrators were the Pakistan military and also some of their local collaborators. And we have tried through the International Crimes Tribunal, Bangladesh, some of the notorious war criminals. Thanks.
Any other questions, maybe, from the audience? Yes. Can you please introduce yourself and...
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noel. I am a student in computer engineering. I've been reading many books over and over, and it's actually the first time, really, that I hear about the Bangladesh genocide. And it's very shocking for me, like, how can 3 million people be killed and none of our books is relating this, I've heard of it nowhere. It's really shocking for me. So the question I had is kind of, why, since 50 years ago, we had no information, no concrete information, because there was small wars that happened, but we hear about them. Why are the European countries, the USA, I don't know, those big powers not trying to make these conflicts that really matters? Why are they not trying to expose it as much as possible so that we can also hear about it? Because it's very important for each and everyone to know their history, not our history, like individually, but the history of everyone.
Thank you so much. Very interesting question. Thank you. Maybe one of the panelists would like to go?
Yes, some short comments. I would say that there is always some reluctance, and even some strong reluctance, in recognizing a genocide, because the use of the term is also abused by NGOs and by some ethnic or religious groups. They are persecuted, there are massive killings, and say, oh, it's a genocide. So what is absolutely important for the Bangladesh genocide is to have accumulation of not only of testimonies, but academic research, scientific research, according to the norms and the criteria of Genocide Watch, for example, and other reliable institutions. And with such material, then it's easier to try to convince states, and as Andy Vermont said, it's a political decision, to convince states, to convince NGOs, etc., and public opinion, international community, that it is worth fighting for the recognition of the Bangladesh genocide. But it will take years, as it took years for the Rwanda, even the Rwandan genocide, the Armenian genocide, and others that are really recognized as such. So I would say to the community of the Bangladeshi, especially the young people, to do a lot of research about that, just for their own personal knowledge, and to really get involved in that movement of the former generations for the recognition, fighting for the recognition of the Bangladesh genocide. There is evidence, for sure, but I think there is still a lot of work for advocacy, and especially in the European Union and the European Union member states. We see the first signs of some interest in the Netherlands. I think that you must build up on that and approach more and more members of the European Parliament to create a strong movement with strong evidence, because I think it's still too tiny, the support that you have in the political arena worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that we need to wrap up because in 5 minutes this session will be closed. So maybe some remarks from Mr. Sital, then anyone, I don't know if Mr. Paul has one comment.
No, I have a question to
yeah.
I have a question to His Excellency. In fact, that there is an international court of justice, and all this genocide, genocidal process, or normally it takes place over there. So, did Bangladesh ever lodge any complaint to the International Court of Justice? If not, why? And what is the problem behind that one? What is the obstacle behind that one?
I think it has already been discussed that you need some recognition from the international community of the atrocities and the genocide that took place. And unfortunately, as we all know, that recognition has not yet been there from major international players. Only a few non-governmental organizations lately. The first one was 31st of December 2021. The recognition came from the Lincoln Institute for Prevention of Genocide. So, and then 3 others followed, but not actually from any state or the government entities or legislature, for example, the European Parliament or other parliaments. That would strengthen, as Willie very rightly said, that our support is I wouldn't say tiny, but not very large yet. We need to publicize it. We need to launch a campaign together. It's not only a government of Bangladesh approach. It has to be a collective global humanity approach. So people like you can certainly make a difference. And either today or tomorrow, we'll get there. We are confident. We have been extremely patient, and we are not losing our patience. And we are launching the campaign collectively with all of you. So once this recognition is there, then of course you can go for the trial of the criminals, even posthumous trials, if they're not alive. And Bangladesh has already tried at least some of the notorious war criminals, as I said, who were directly involved with the genocide that took place in Motherland in 1971.
Yeah, my question very precisely is not for the recognition process. We have discussed a lot about the recognition process. My question very precisely that, whether Bangladesh has lodged any complaint to the International Court of Justice.
No, I said, I mean, you must have the research-based evidence. We have not lodged. Because you really need to have evidence. And that is based on research. Some research, as I referred to a researcher at the beginning, Dr. Tawhid Reza Noor, he is doing a comprehensive postdoctoral research on genocide of Bangladesh in 1971. And his research findings would be very valuable for academic researchers and human rights campaigners like you. Once you have these academic researchers, you can certainly build your case. It's not only a political campaign. It's a campaign much beyond that. It's a human rights campaign. It's a research, academic research-based campaign. And then you mobilize all those campaigns into a synergy that will take us to the desired goal that we all are trying to achieve. It will take time. I fully agree with Willie. It will take years, but it will happen. The recognition will take place.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I'm sorry we have to wrap up. So Mr. Sital, then Andy, then Mr. Willie, I think.
10 seconds.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
I will just take 1 minute. I think I can assure Excellency that in September we have a site event inside the UN. We're not going to call it like now forgotten genocide, but Genocide Bangladesh 1971. So, yeah, so we are not forgotten it. In Geneva, we remember that. And I invite everyone who wants to join us in Geneva to support us, to have a big site event. and maybe we want to put some big banners outside the broken chair to remember, to people put it in their mind what happened in 1971. So the campaign just started, but we hope to end it also, and not too long after we launch the campaign. So I need all your help, and thank you so much for being here. And we can change, but we can change the world also. Thank you so much.
Yes, since 2021 we are already campaigning for the recognition. So we organized in front, and Manel was also a speaker there, in front of the European Commission and External Action Service. We organized already a big event with all the Bangladeshi community leaders coming together also with a lot of diaspora people coming together to have this recognized. Next to this, we also went afterwards with people, also some people who are here from the Bangladesh community. We went to the External Action Service. We asked Joseph Borrell to think about this recognition, and we did it already for multiple years in a row, and we won't stop. We won't stop until the day comes that the European Commission, also the European Parliament, also the External Action Service remembers this genocide. We won't stop because we have the Bangladeshi people on our side, and we have all the powers on our side who want to get this. And also really portray this man. He gave a lot of, he worked years and years to make this known worldwide. He has his newsletter who is sent to thousands of diplomats around the world. And we will work together with him also to make this happen, together also with the people. Thank you very much, everyone, to raise this question. And also thank you for Mr. Sital for raising this forgotten genocide question here in the Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And bouncing back on what Andy has said, also through Bitter Winter, the other magazine I am involved in, there was a series of 8 articles about the genocide in Bangladesh. But I wanted to add one more dimension, Excellence, to what you just said. Yes, evidence, of course, but also identifying the perpetrators and making their names and their pictures worldwide visible and known, and prosecuting some of them who may still be alive, because remember, with the Nazi criminals, some were in their 80s and in their 90s and were prosecuted and sentenced by court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for contributing to the success of this event. I would like to thank all the MEPs who were present here, and thank specifically MEP Martuchello for hosting this event, and thank Global Human Rights Defense for this initiative. Thank you, Your Excellency, for being here, the Ambassador of Bangladesh to the EU, and thank you for your insights. I would like to thank the staff of MEP Martuchello for their help and support, and thank Mrs. Juliana Franciosa for coming here today to give a small speech to support people of Bangladesh, as well as the Bangladesh community present here. Thank you so much, and we would like you to follow the newsletter of Willy Fortray and also the Cap Conscience et Liberté for all the students who are a student in international relations. This is a very important newsletter, and also important articles on issues on human rights, but also the Global Human Rights Defense, which is a very important human rights organization acting in Geneva, The Hague, and now also in the European Parliament. Thank you so much.
Is it still possible for everybody to come here, that we can take a picture with everyone?